Hey, good morning. Today is the 5th of February, 2019, and it is your dad, Miguel, straight from Lompoc. And Lompoc, California, the best little town in the best state in the world. How are you doing, girl? I hope you're doing well today. Wow, Valentine's Day is coming up soon. It is the 5th of February, and Valentine's Day is the 14th of February. And, well, it's a special day to spread love and appreciation throughout the world. I hope you're doing well. Hope classes are going well for you. I took a I went to my welding class yesterday and took an exam. I think I aced the quiz, so that's nice. It got me to thinking just how much I need to start reading the textbook. It's only been a week and I feel so behind, even after just 1 week of class. And so, what I'm excited about doing is using Quizlet, the app that allows you to make flashcards. And I really want to get to that. Maybe I could do a little bit of that tonight. I also am trying to study using my iPad Pro. I want to use my iPad Pro to study the textbook somehow, maybe by using the pen to highlight parts of the chapter. And if I can use like the pen function of the iPad Pro tablet and use Quizlet, I think I could have a pretty awesome study strategy for the remainder of the semester. We'll see how that all goes, of course. Let's see what else is going on. It's raining like the Dickens. I can't believe it. Like all week has been raining, and then it's continuing to rain even today. It rains all night and all day. It's just rain, rain, rain. It's pretty fabulous, really. It's fabulous because I've got visions in my head about what the future is going to hold. As it relates to plants, they're going to be so green and growing. This spring is going to be an amazing spring. In fact, I've got an idea that this spring is just going to be so bountiful and beautiful and green. And it'll last an entire month before the sun bakes it into a golden brown crisp. But dang, we'll have a pretty amazing month or two of just beautiful greenness going on. All these plants, animals are going to be thriving. And I'll tell you, water is the source of life on this planet. And the more water we can get on the terrestrial land, the more gorgeous our planet will be. That's for sure. I kind of wish that it would rain all the time. We have so much ocean on this planet. I would like to form like a tropical rainforest or just big, huge forests of trees and plants all over the land. In a way, I wish there weren't any deserts, but because I just love the variety of plant life and animal life that exists in very wet places. Anyway, we're getting our wetness here on the central coast of California, so I'm really pleased about that. One thing I've been noticing lately is my hair. I don't know if you've noticed, but my hairstyle has changed slightly. And I'm doing it up differently. And, here's why. First of all, I want to change. I've been doing my hair in the same style since I was like 11 years old. And so I'm experimenting with something new. I'm experiencing with bigger hair. And there's another thing that I'm doing too. I want to grow my hair out. I want hair that, the fact is, growing up, I had really short hair pretty much throughout my entire youth and young adulthood and middle-aged adulthood. Short hair. I know what short hair is like. And, And I wanted to give myself the experience of discovering what my hair might look like if it were longer. Now, I've heard stories about my hair being curly when it grows out. So I'm sort of interested in discovering that and watching that happen. Also, I kind of like the idea of, say, freedom. It's, hair when it's longer makes certain signals to the world around you, to the people around you. Some of that signaling might be things like, for at least for a man, that signaling would be like daring or free. What does long hair signal besides daring and free? Confidence, uniqueness, and those are some signals that I like to transmit to the world around me. And we'll see if I can do that with hair that looks halfway decent as it becomes longer. And I think this hairstyle that I've got will just help me manage the longer hair. We'll see how it goes. I'm still trying to figure out what I like. As you can tell, this is a work in progress. And that's the thing. That's what appearance is all about, right? It's about work in progress. It's about ideas, and so I'm just developing those ideas. So I figured what we could do now is we could start up the session that is about the question and answer period. So the Q&A. So I've got my Kindle ebook filled with lots of questions, and we can go through each one. And the one I think we're on is 236, which is, what is your favorite expression? Well, I'm not sure I know what my favorite expression is, but I can tell you what my most frequent expressions are. Like, one expression that I say a lot is amazing. How I got locked into using that expression all the time, I do not know. But I think that's a really common thing for me to say. What other expressions do I say that are frequent? Hey, Em, that's an expression that I use a lot. I know you've heard that a lot. You've probably heard that more than any other expression coming out of my mouth. What other expressions? It would be interesting to get with some AI software, that is artificial intelligence software, go through all these videos that I'm producing and find out, discover what is the most frequent expression that I use most of the time. And I really have no guess as to what it might be. A lot of the thing about these expressions that are so common for me, they're so common, they're almost unconscious. I say them all the time. And so I almost have no awareness of the most common expressions that I use. You know what? Maybe a laughter. This sort of laugh that I do, I'm noticing, that's an expression. It's sort of like a short laugh. Where does that come from? I have no idea. All right, let's move on to the next question. Question number 237. What is your all-time favorite video game? Haven't I answered this question before? I would guess that my all-time favorite video game is Super Mario Brothers. I know. And then Mario Brothers, and then Ice Climber. That's a really fun one. And Joust. But what I need to do is I need to find Joust with a larger screen. I actually do play Joust on a fairly regular basis, but screen is too small on my Nintendo Game Boy. Let's see. I've been enjoying Tetris lately. That's been my favorite one so far. And I don't know. Okay, next question. Question number 238. What real person, dead or alive, do you wish you could be more like and why? Oh boy. Real person, dead or alive, that I wish I could be more like. Hmm. That's a good question. So, who is that man that plays opposite of Lady Gaga in the movie? In that latest movie, his name starts with a B, I think, or his last name may start with a B. I forget his name, but I like him. I'd like to be a lot more like him. He speaks French. I don't speak the French language. Um, I don't know. Who would I like to be more like? I don't know. There's so many people out there who I admire. It really is sort of a, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. There's so many traits, so many virtues. And it's funny that not there isn't any one virtue that is sort of like that overtakes them all, right? I like people who have sort of various and perhaps divergent personalities, where they have lots of different skill sets in different areas, and they can use them well. I think I really admire people who have excellent communication skills. And any person who has amazing communication skills is someone who I want to be more like, someone who I want to emulate. Okay, so question number 239. What's your all time favorite band, and what would you give to meet them? Well, I'm not sure I have an all time favorite band, but I like Van Halen. And, I kind of mentioned this before. I think I've gone through a lot of these questions. Let's move on to the next question. Question number 240. What's your least favorite thing to do and why? Wow, that's an interesting one. What's my least favorite thing to do? Okay, so I want to give you an honest answer here about my least favorite thing to do. Let me think. The least favorite thing to do. Well, when it comes to physical activity, my least favorite thing to do. There's a lot of things I don't, often if it's my least favorite thing, I just try not to do it. My least favorite thing to do. Well, I guess I've got a few ideas. Well, I don't like to be my least favorite thing to do. Well, I'll just throw out some things. I don't like feeling like really, really hungry. I don't like that at all. Um, and I also don't like necessarily eating when I feel very, I mean, I love to eat when I'm feeling very, very hungry, but I just don't, I think something's wrong when I'm eating and I'm really, really hungry. Let's see what else. I also don't like stewing in my own emotional stew, like um, whether it's sadness or anger or upset. I just don't like stewing alone. That's something I don't quite like doing. Um, I'd rather communicate with another person or get out and about and do something. What's my all-time least favorite thing to do? Um, Here's something I don't care for doing. I don't like a setting where I'm sort of being instructed by a coach, like in a sports situation. Just for some reason, I don't like I don't like these group athletics. Group athletics. I really don't care. Here's an example. There's there are people who go bicycling, like on a stationary bike in groups with a coach that says, okay, now let's go really fast and get up off your chair and let's what is that sport called? It's like speed biking or something like that. Believe it or not, I really don't care to be in situations like that where I've got sort of peer pressure working in a sort of with a real challenging coach. So this combination of, say, directive coaching and peer pressure, I don't like to be in situations like that. I just don't care for situations like that. It's one of my least favorite kind of situations to be in, where I'm part of a group and there's a leader that's directing the group in a directive way. For me, it's all about collaboration. It's all about choice and freedom and creativity, and that is something I can get passionate about. But having this top-down, rigid peer pressure, particularly the peer pressure situation going on, I don't care. I don't care for that. Let's see. What else is my least favorite thing to do? There might be other least favorite things to do. Let's see. This is kind of interesting because it is somewhat illuminating to myself as I begin to notice what things I really don't care for. Oh, here's something I don't care for. Hiking far away from civilization by myself. Do not care for that scenario. And it just seems unduly risky. And in fact, the same is also true if there's like a small pack of people that I'm hiking with, and there's a leader who thinks they know what's going on when they may not know what's going on. That it just kind of bugs me to be in that kind of situation. I don't care to be put at risk in that way. I don't like being away from people, like really separate. Like I know there are a lot of people who love to be out in the middle of nowhere, right? Without a soul around. They really appreciate that whole isolation game where they're just really in the middle of nowhere. I really don't care for that situation at all. I like to be around people. I like to be around groups of people, and the larger the group of people, the better. Absolutely. The larger the group of people, the better. If I could, I would hang out at convention centers all day long. Okay. So I think that's a pretty good raft of ideas about situations that I don't care for. That probably gives you some insight into my personality. Okay, so the next question is question number 241. What's your favorite subject to discuss and why? Well, my favorite subject probably has to do with anything related to psychology. And my favorite subjects within psychology are communication and empathy and happiness. And I would guess that happiness or gratitude are two of my favorite subjects. Yeah. Question number 242. When you fly, do you prefer to arrive at the airport extra early or get there just in the nick of time, and why? So I love getting to airports early, real early. like an hour or even 2 hours early, 3 hours, 4 hours. That it doesn't matter. For me, it's important to show up on time with plenty of time to make it through the security lines. And I'm fine with just sitting down, reading a book, or surfing the internet, or something like that, writing notes to myself in the meantime as I'm waiting. Let me tell you, a person can just spend a lot of time sitting on their couch in their living room watching a sitcom. They can spend hours and hours just binging on Netflix or whatever. And you know what? You can do the same thing in an airport. You can do completely the same thing in an airport. So it totally makes sense for me to just come as early as I can and just camp out, enjoy myself, read the paper, have a snack, have an ice cream or a soda, a candy bar, read a book, watch a movie, listen to music. I mean, that's really enjoyable. So I don't mind going early to the airport. Next question. Question number 243. Whom do you most admire and why? I don't know. Well, one of my heroes is Albert Einstein. And, partly it is because I admire his creativity and his mathematical skill. I also admire his stance on pacifism. I also admire him for the struggle that he dealt with when he was separated from his children, when he went through a divorce. I think he was separated from his children for a very long time. He lived in the United States of America, and his kids lived in Germany, I think, or Switzerland, I think. And I can only imagine what kind of struggle it was for him. And so I can relate to him on that level. I admire the creative work that he did as it relates to atoms and energy and electricity and things like that. Okay, so what is the next question? Question number 244. What bothers you most about perfectionists? Well, first of all, I do consider myself somewhat of a perfectionist, but I'm certainly not as bad as I used to be. What bothers me about perfectionists in general, though, to answer the question, is not just the over focus on doing things a certain way, but on the assuming that one way is very much better than another. Also, the extravagant expense of energy. I don't care for this, all the energy of action and thought brought to a goal with little payoff, right? There's this problem with perfectionism, and it's the diminishing returns problem. When you first attack a problem with a moderate amount of energy, you might solve the problem 50% to 80%, and the second, third, fourth, fifth time, you might solve the problem 85, 90, 92, 93, 94, 95% of the time. But if you continue to tackle that problem, there's like this rule of diminishing returns where you're not even sure that you're making progress. There's almost no payoff for all the energy you're devoting to, trying to reach a certain state. And so I don't like that. I don't like the wastefulness of energy with so little payoff. Okay, what's the next question? Question number 245. How do you prefer to give constructive criticism? Do you typically wait for someone to ask for it or not, and why? Well, I always give constructive criticism. It is just the way I do business. And do I typically wait for someone to ask for it? No. Although I really appreciate when someone might ask for some criticism. I don't always. I don't always. I mean, I like to wait for another person to ask for criticism, but sometimes I provide my own criticism. You know, it's kind of hard. I do the best I can to allow the other person, basically invite them to sort of behave the way they want. And I tend to practice acceptance about this as just a personal practice, right? And so, but sometimes I do falter and do provide some kind of comments about what I'm liking and what I'm not liking. I don't know. I know it's not it depends, you know what, the approach depends on context. You know, what's kind of interesting is I think I want to get back to a previous question. Question number 244, what bothers you most about perfectionists? There is one other thing that bothers me about perfectionists. And it's this continuous dwelling on a situation that is adequate. You know, there's this over focus, this what I'd call obsessive energy on a certain topic or idea. And, you know, I think it has the potential to be destructive. Yeah, and that's one thing I don't like about perfectionists. Well, anyway, I think we're done with this for now. What I'd like to do is move on to Attitude of Gratitude book by M.J. Ryan, the book Attitudes of Gratitude in Love, and go through some of my highlighted notes. So here we go. So on page 54, I highlighted this passage. But by appreciating what is in front of us absolutely as much as we possibly can while we can, we redeem and advance the inevitability of loss. Oh my gosh, that is a wonderful statement. I'm just going to say it again. But by appreciating what is in front of us as absolutely as much as we possibly can while we can, we redeem and advance the inevitability of loss. Okay, wow, what a great statement. So as a human being, as we grow older, what happens is that we end up eventually losing everything. That is when we die. And you know what? Basically, the rest of life is just this process of loss. It's just continuous. It's gaining momentarily and then losing. I mean, I've gained my health. I lost my health. I gained my youth. I lost my youth. I gained my lovers. I lost my lovers. I gained my child. I lost my child. You know, this is just what life is all about. It's this ebb and flow. And I love what this statement is saying. I'll just read it again because I really want to understand it clearly. It says, but by appreciating what is in front of us absolutely as much as we possibly can while we can, we redeem and advance the inevitability of loss. So, you know, this statement isn't basically, it's a call to action. It's advocating loving what is as much as you can while you're living it. Because inevitably it will be lost. Every moment, every second is lost. I mean, this second that I've got right now that I'm enjoying is now lost. It's lost. It's lost to the past. Maybe it's over there. Who knows where it is now? It's gone. And what better way to celebrate or protect against loss, or how do you deal with the loss, except how do you deal with the loss best? But by enjoying every moment as much as you possibly can. You know, it's kind of funny. Our lives as human beings are so fleeting. We all know it. We all know how fleeting our lives are, and yet we hold ourselves back, from enjoying our lives moment by moment like we probably ought to. We don't honor every second as it is happening. We just take it for granted, like we're going to have the next second, the next minute, hour, or day, or year. And often we do get those next hours, days, and years, but sometimes we don't. Anyway, so that is an amazing quote. I'm just going to say it again because I think I really need to work on this. But by appreciating what is in front of us as absolutely, I love that emphasis word, absolutely, as much as we possibly can. There's a logical aspect to it. While we can, we redeem. That means we purchase in advance the inevitability of loss. That means, we ameliorate or reduce the pain as it relates to the loss. In a way, I think I could also magnify the loss. We can imagine just how good we had it back then. And, that could be a problem too. Here's the thing. I like to say that nature is neutral. And it's true. Nature is actually quite neutral. And nature is just what I'd call a pile of Lego building blocks. And, these are the atoms I'm referring to, and they're all forming molecules. And, it's just a jumble of atoms and molecules that are forming together. That's just what life is. It's very neutral. It's certainly not static, but it is morally neutral in the sense that it's just things, different arrangements over time. And, the question arises, because nature is neutral, ought we to have a neutral attitude toward everything anyway? And you know what? That may be what I'd call, say, the most realistic of attitudes, a fairly neutral one. But here's the thing. Human beings have an interest. They have an interest in staying alive. And, we act to gain or keep our life every moment of every day. Every moment of every day, we're deciding whether we want to live more or less. And, for me, the question of things like suicide is natural, because we are continually making the decision to stay alive, to take our next breath, right? There's always that we have the freedom of choice whether to take the next breath or not. We have the freedom of choice whether to drink water or not. We have the freedom of choice whether to eat our next meal or not. We have the freedom of choice whether to walk safely as we exit our door of our homes. So we are continuously confronted with this question of to exist or not to exist. Shakespeare said it aptly. He said, to be or not to be, that is the question. And it's a question that we as human beings are continually asking ourselves and answering, right? Continually asking and answering. Now, how many times does a person ask in an indirect way of themselves whether they want to continue to be alive? My answer would be every second. Every second. Every second we are either affirming or disaffirming our life in some way, and it's continual. It's just a factor. It's just us being alive. The possibility of death exists every moment of our lives. And anyway, on that happy moment, I guess what I'm trying to do is compare and contrast this idea of, appreciating and enjoying every moment of our lives compared to, say, a neutral stance. And which is better? Well, I'll leave that for you to ponder. It's kind of interesting how I have been yawning lately. I don't know if you've catching this in my videos, but yesterday I yawned a lot. Today I'm yawning a lot. I'm not sure what is going on, honestly. I think I'm getting plenty of sleep. Maybe there's something to do with, maybe this is something to do with my video format or something like that. I'm not sure. Well, let's move on to the next passage that I highlighted in this book, Attitudes of Gratitude and Love. So the next passage is that I highlighted is on page 58. It says, "Are you willing to be generously open-hearted to this other person if he or she just goes on his or her merrily oblivious way?" So I think this relates to whether you in your relationships want to be right, whether you want to be close. Are you willing to be generously open-hearted to this other person, even if they go on their own merrily way? It's really about, when we're with others, there's a choice being made continuously, and that's how loving or open are we choosing to be. And it really is up to us. It's really up to us every moment. I know that a lot of people think about relationships as being these exchanges, right? And a lot of people with ideas about fairness and equality and justice are really fixated on that happening in relationships. But that has never really been I like the idea of equality, but I have a sense that what it really takes is two people giving 90% into the relationship in order to help it thrive. I think that is what may be required. This whole idea of being sort of, well, I'll give when they give to me first, or that is just so unworkable. That just does not work in relationships. It's just not a feasible working out of relationships. Oh, like here's an example. This is my brother. He just texted me, "I hope you have a good day." So this is an example of his sort of outpouring, right? That's what it is to be in a relationship. It's an outpouring. It's taking initiative, and that's Enrico giving 90% in a relationship. No matter what my response is, he will have felt better for having initiated this reaching out. And that's my philosophy of relationships. And I think honestly I need to practice it more often. But I think it really is quite important for people to take the initiative and move forward in relationships. And I think that's the key to building strong relationships. Reaching out on a regular basis. And Emily, that is why I reach out on a regular basis. That is my modus operandi. That is how I operate in relationships now. It's about giving and giving continuously as a choice. And it's not waiting on the sidelines for another person to respond first. That's a great way to kill a relationship when the focus on equality is just too strong. Yeah. I kind of wish I had really known that earlier in my life. But here's the thing. Thankfully, I'm more of an extrovert than an introvert. And so I'm not continuously relying on external triggers to decide to express myself. So thankfully, I've got that going for me. And, if anything, that has really helped me in my relationships. But it's what I'd call a fairly natural trait that just sort of expresses itself all the time. That's not to say there's no time, no place for improvement, because there definitely is. The fact is, too, there's just so many people out there. For me, it's like there's always the choice of where I want to spend my energy, where do I want to devote my energy. The fact is, a lot of my energy is directed toward improving my life, my own life, and I don't necessarily direct a lot of energy in other areas. And maybe I need to do that a little bit more often. It's kind of funny. As an part of the Myers-Briggs personality test, well, that test has given me this ENFP. I'm basically an ENFP label. And that kind of person, so I read, is a person who can be both extroverted and introverted. So I can be very extroverted and I can be quite introverted. It's really a choice. It is a fairly natural. I can move between the two options pretty naturally. I don't mind being alone, and I also want to be with others. And so I can reach out when I want to. So I'm really grateful that I've got the confidence to do something like that. I don't feel really strained. I can be both, right? Sometimes I'm both at the same time. Well, maybe that's not true. But certainly in the same day, I can be quite expressive and then quite introverted later on in the day. Anyway, now let's see. What else is going on with me? What is the next quotation? Okay, so the next highlight in this book is on page 56, and the passage reads, "It is my belief and experience that when one person opens their heart to the other, the dynamic between them inevitably changes for the better. But there is always that moment when you have to take the leap of faith and just do it with no guarantees." Yeah, I'll just read that quote again. "It is my belief and experience that when one person opens their heart to the other, the dynamic between them inevitably changes for the better. But there is always that moment when you have to take the leap of faith and just do it with no guarantees." Yeah. So that's the thing about relationships. It's almost like the other person is like this black box, right? I don't know what's going on in their minds. And I might have this love to express, this appreciation to express. I don't know how they're going to react. And so what is interesting is that, sometimes you just have to express without having any good idea of, or any guarantee of how the other person will respond. that's one one of the things I think is one of the most tragic about human beings and our relationships, and that is we're so sealed off from one another. You know, each and every person has their own brain, and that brain is wrapped by a skull, right? And there's no connecting the two. You know, we can do our best to express words and phrases and ideas, but they have to be interpreted by another person, and that other person might interpret these words in different ways, and so there's a lot of room for misunderstanding. It's as if we're two ships passing in the night, you know, in the sense that, you know, they're the contents of our minds. We could be walking by our soulmate in the grocery store and not even know it. Yeah, our minds are like vaults, you know, and they hold all these valuable ideas and creative imaginings and skills and strengths. And we could, if we were able to sort of advertise those skills and strengths, we could benefit. You know, we could join two people together and they could live an amazing life. But it's just so happens that we're so shielded by just the facts of reality that even though we could get so much benefit by sort of connecting with one another, we don't. We miss so many opportunities. There's so much loss going on in the world. I'm sure there are people out there who would, if I connected with them, would make my life an amazing heaven of a life. But the fact is, when I look around, I see nothing. You know, I see that's the tragedy of being a human being, and that is how much potential there is for our mutual cooperation, and how that cooperation gets squandered because people are afraid to express themselves and what they need and want and wish for and desire. And it may be that people around them want to give of themselves to the other person, but I don't know. We just have problems with communication in our brains. You know, it's a physical problem in the sense that no one could know what material is in your mind until you express it. And a lot of people just don't express that material. It's easy not to. It's easy to fall out of the habit of expressing that material. And so it's really a tragedy. I would guess that is like the number one tragedy of human beings. And that is the separateness of human minds, and how, you know, really we live lives in isolation. And thankfully, we've got the internet, which can help out a lot when it comes to sort of getting two people on the same page. I wish it were easier. And I guess what I mean by that is I wish it were easier to spot resources in other people, and then sort of become aware. Other people could become aware of, or other people become aware of spending those resources on others. You know, there are a lot of people who have lots of internal resources. They want to express appreciation, gratitude, and love all the time, but they just don't get a chance because there are no willing objects of that love. I know it sounds crazy to say, but I think it's true. It's kind of funny how all people are willing to be objects of love, and they're also willing to love, and we just have a hard time making those matches. Yeah, it's a huge loss. If only we could do a better job at identifying what people had to offer and what people were willing to receive. we could make an amazing life. Well, anyway, Emily, I'm going to wrap today's presentation up. I'm getting ready to go to work, and I want to say thank you very much for being a part of my day today, and thanks for listening patiently to what I had to say. And I hope that you were able to find the insights that you wish to find in our conversation today. Today we went over the Q&A session of a couple questions, and then I also went over my Attitudes of Gratitude in Love book, a few passages that I highlighted in that book. And we also talked about current events, what's going on with me. I have a lot to look forward to this week. I'm going to be getting a new keyboard for my iPad, which will be wonderful. It'll also double as a stand. I have a yoga class coming up at the end of the week, and I also have a welding class coming up tomorrow, and I don't know, all kinds of amazing stuff going on. I'm also experimenting with the Pomodoro method of increasing my productivity, and that's really, really working well. I'm having a lot of good progress, and so that is really exciting. And when I learn more about how to manage and do Pomodoro technique more often, I'll probably talk a little bit more about it with you so that you can get the benefit of some of my experience. All right. Well, Emily, I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll talk to you later. Peace.